the Planning Commission at 6:03 on April 23rd. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Gothier.
Here.
Commissioner Blair.
Here.
Commissioner Bellows.
Here.
Commissioner Petrie.
Here.
Commissioner Mitchell. Absent. And Chair Banger.
Here. Okay, we have two continuation of public hearings this evening. I want to make one short comment before we start. I've been working on public involvement in local affairs, whether it's state, county, or city, for over 20 years. We made progress during the first decade of this century. Unfortunately, since 2011, a series of laws have been passed by the state legislature, which has largely eliminated any discretion in planning by local government. And I wanted to let you know, sometimes decisions are going to be made that you don't agree with, and maybe we don't like, but we have to follow the law. Okay, with that, yes.
Got the feedback on?
Yep. Continue.
Sorry.
Okay. We're hearing on land use 2024-03, an annexation application, and 2024-07, a development plan and subdivision application, continued from April 9, 2025. Both items are itemized on the agenda. I will identify the subject and announce when the public hearing is open. The public testimony portion of both hearings was closed on April 9, and the Planning Commission left the written public testimony portion open until April 23, 2025. I understand from staff we received some comments from the public and some comments from the applicant. Is that correct, staff?
We received no comments for the annexation.
Okay. Well, let's start with the annexation, which is 2024-07. Oh, 03, excuse me. I'm very sorry. I misspoke. Staff, do you have any further reports other than we had last?
Yeah. The material within the staff report, my findings were not changed. The only thing that was changed was a reduction in the recommended conditions of approval based off of the proposed reductions that were submitted to the city by the applicant. Myself, Steve Layden, city engineer, we all agree with the proposed conditions of approval. So the staff recommendation remains recommend with approval, and the conditions are the future development of the annex properties will be contingent upon approval of this development plan application. Street interior to the property will include the extension of the neighborhood route, which is Street A, and then future development of the property will provide a minimum of 18 dwellings per net acre.
Okay. Any questions from commission to staff? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm looking through the annexation thing and reading the legal description here, and it's as I talked earlier. I think we're back to the original legal description in the staff report that was incorrectly written.
You are correct. I will need to go fix that. Would you like to explain what the issue was?
The issue is this is the legal description. I used to be a surveyor. I read these things for fun. Written on January 31st, and in a legal description, when you use the word to, fence bearing distance to something, to says thing you're going to takes precedence over other things when there's a conflict. The phrase on this is fence leading said right-of-way line south, blah, blah, west, so many feet, to a point on the northerly line of tax lot 100 map zone. Referring, so that makes the tax lot, the north line of the tax lot, the controlling feature that boundary has to follow along. And tax lots are not permanent. They change all the time. They're not like a lot in a subdivision.
The instant you guys do a subdivision here, that tax law will cease to exist. There's no record of it, so it's completely inappropriate in a deal. I was telling Max that, and then when it showed up, Washington County had come and said, "Hey, you guys got to fix that," and it was fixed. And so the current dated one is the one we should be going by, not this.
So to Commissioner Blair's point, I did not update the staff report to reflect the accurate
The corrected.
description. I'd also received notice from Department of Revenue stating that the legal description originally submitted was incorrect, and I was provided with the correct legal description. So going forward with the decision staff report that I submit to the City Council, we'll have the correct.
So in our decision, anyone who makes a motion should indicate besides conditions, but that would include the corrected map. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Blair, because I wouldn't have caught that. Okay. Does the applicant have any comments on the annexation issue?
No, ma'am, although that was a good catch. Thank you very much, sir. No comments.
Okay.
I think the annexation has been very uncontroversial, so.
Okay.
Yeah, in our last 2 weeks ago, final legal description it's good.
Just picked up the wrong one when I did this. Yeah.
But I don't want to prove.
No. That's why I'm making the comment. Okay, the public hearing portion was closed. Is there any further discussion before I ask for a motion?
I have one more point to.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. The city is still waiting on a letter of consent for the right-of-way annexation on 137 from Washington County.
Oh.
Which has been indicated to me that it should be forthcoming.
You've gotten oral approval,
Yeah.
but, okay. All right, so we. In regards to the issue?
No, it's the adjacent 137 section, so the southwestern part. When this annexation is complete, it will annex that portion of 137.
Gotcha.
So it'll be like a 150, 200-foot stretch of 137 will be in the city.
Okay,
So our annexation, there's a lot that's an empty lot. Is that empty lot that's along 137th?
It's not the inside, it's the right-of-way.
Oh. Okay, so
All right, so
This right-of-way.
the additional
Okay.
Carol,
Adjoining the development.
Yeah.
it's this piece right here.
And that's only that piece? Yeah. Okay, got it.
So we will have to add, in addition to just saying the conditions in the report, the correct property description and a letter from Washington County regarding the right-of-way on 137. Is that correct? Okay. I want to make sure that we all... Okay. All right. Hearing no further discussion, I would request a motion on the annexation proposal. Remember, this is a recommendation. We do not have the authority to approve annexation. Somebody make a motion?
I move that we approve for recommendation the annexation with conditions. And correct
Property description.
property description, letter and
Washington County.
and the letter from Washington County, giving us the right-of-way on 137th along the annexation boundary.
Is there a
Yeah.
second?
I will second that.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of recommending annexation of land use 2024-03, do we need to have a roll call? Yeah, we have to have a roll call.
Commissioner Gothier,
approved.
Commissioner Blair,
Approved.
Commissioner Bellows,
Approve.
Commissioner Petrie,
Approve.
Chair Boehner.
Yes. The motion carries unanimously, and this recommendation will go to the city council in 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
On May 21st.
Okay. All right. Now we'll move on to land use application 2024-07, the development plan and subdivision application from April 9, 2025. Any further staff report on this item?
Yeah, so we received numerous public comments during the reopening of the public testimony period. I forwarded this to the planning commission as I received them. The last one I received on Monday. I got that we've all gone over them, which you
Yes.
and then for the applicant also submitted their own written testimony, their own written statements, along with rebuttals during their period. And the staff report remains materially unchanged as far as the findings go. And I, again, along with the annexation, received numerous proposals for amended conditions of approval. And so I went back with my team and we looked at them. We worked with the applicant to a certain extent so we could agree on what the conditions were. And those have been reflected at the end of the staff report.
Yeah, that would probably be good for the record, for the public who wasn't here 2 weeks ago.
I'll just give you brief summaries and total.
Why don't you refer to the page so that we're all can just follow?
Page 9 in the development staff report.
Okay.
Okay.
The staff recommends to the planning commission to recommend approval with conditions to the city council. And these are the conditions that the staff has identified. The number one condition is this subdivision and development plan application approval is contingent upon the successful approval of the annexation application LU 2024-03 and the adoption of the associated annexation ordinance by the city council of King City. That's important. The second condition just kind of states the processes that the applicant will have to adhere to as they begin to go through their their development process. Condition 3, kind of the same thing. It has some city engineer requirements, along with condition 4 has kind of requirements for the construction plan. I want to be clear that the land use approval is one thing, but then as the development begins to be constructed, it has to go through a very stringent list of building codes, building inspections, engineering codes, engineering inspections throughout the entire process. So this is just for the land use. 5 goes again into engineering requirements. 6 goes into the necessity of performance bond. 7 goes into what the developer must do to notify the city engineer. 8 also goes into the city engineering requirements. And then 9 details the necessity of a maintenance bond. 10 details that the applicant will have to provide copies of all agency utility requirements, comments, approvals, and other correspondence through all of their permitting throughout the entire process so that the city has good records. The street improvements listed on page 61 go into the details of what the public improvements must be. This details the neighborhood streets, 46-foot right-of-way, 26-foot pavement width, et cetera. 13 designates street A as a neighborhood route, stating that it must be completed with half-street improvements that will accommodate at a future time a full street. Condition 14 states that an 8-foot wide public easement shall be required across all tracts and lot frontages adjacent to the right-of-way. Condition 15 details the half improvements to southern end of East Bend adjacent to the neighborhood. 16 details the improvements to 137th, the half street improvements to 137th adjacent to the neighborhood, and 17 details the improvements to Street A. And then 18 improvements of pedestrian and bicycle mid-block connections, which they are providing in track A, which will ultimately have to be approved by the city engineer. Storm drain improvements, these are pretty much condition 19 and 20 were taken exclusively from Clean Water Services, and the Clean Water Services letter that was submitted to the city, along with condition 21. Condition 22 states that development activities cannot take place on site prior to the receipt of an approval letter from DSL for the LWI containing the subject properties or otherwise concurrence from DSL that no wetlands exist within 100 feet of the project site. That condition is put in there because while the applicant has provided the city with a delineation for the subject properties and a draft LWI is currently up at the Department of State Lands, there is not 100% definitive proof that there are no wetlands within 100 feet. 23 states that the applicant will have to work with the city of Tigard to provide water. 24 and 25 just go into the plans that the city is requesting. So we know that we're satisfying BBF&R and private disposal requirements and landscaping plans for the public right-of-way areas. 29 goes into how dimensional standards will have to be adhered to. 30 details how residential units shall, again, go along with what has been provided to the city, and then also states that the lots that are served on the private driveway will still have to adhere to the design standards as if they were on a public right-of-way, so like the frontage and the facade and stuff. And then condition 31 states that a final plat, 5 copies must be submitted to the manager within 1 year of approval, which complies with the approved preliminary plat.
Thank you. I think it's always a good idea to put them on the record so that someone's watching does not have to be scrounging through paper to try and understand what's going on. Okay. Is there any discussion at this point before I ask for a motion?
Yeah.
I will. I know this is a
Continuation, out of an abundance of caution and experience or my potential conflict of interest again. I live on the end of River Lane. I'm about a half mile south. Ingress and egress. I have no financial anything that's going on. The development itself may up or down my property value. Don't know. So I don't have a direct
conflict of interest unless they
potential conflict of interest. I believe I can make my judgment based on the merits of the application. I'm also saying there were 3 town meetings, 3 neighborhood meetings. I attended 2 of them, and that's
the limits of my ex parte communications on this.
Commissioner Bellis?
Okay, we're discussing. I wanted to talk about the 4 lots that are in the northwest corner. I've been doing a lot of walking through King City, and neighborhoods are connected, neighborhoods like this. I am wondering if there could be a 6 to 10 foot easement for pedestrians along the southern border of those lots that would connect to the next development over.
The applicant has requested 5 minutes for rebuttal. Do you have any rebuttal at this point?
Yes, that would be perfect, because we didn't really get a chance to do the final argument the way that we normally would. So I'll be real quick.
Well, this is it's an oddball case.
Yeah, but thank you for allowing me 5 minutes. Real quick, you know, based on the last hearing, it became clear that the big issue is the intersection of Beef Bend and 137th. And I got to thinking about it a lot over the last couple of weeks. You know, the county told us that King City is not a priority, basically. They said, we want to spend our money. We have other projects that we think are higher priority. And so in that sense, they would probably like it if you didn't develop anything so that they could just, you know, or develop. What they wanted to do originally was just to redesign our development, and then that way we'd pay our SDCs and they would spend that money somewhere else. And I think that the city, it's very important that the city start insisting that the county spend some of their money in your jurisdiction to effectuate your master plan. They agreed with the master plan, they signed off on it. And, you know, this first intersection, to me, it's the gateway intersection from the east going west. It's the first intersection. It needs to get fixed. There's a plan to fix it. And I think if you approve the subdivision, what's really going to happen is they're going to reprioritize their projects in order to, because they said, you know, oh, well, it's right now the double T intersection is not a great design. Everyone recognizes it needs to be redesigned. I think if you approve the development, that'll force their hand, and that means that intersection gets fixed faster. Right now it's on schedule for year 1 through 7 on the TSP. We're already in year 2 of that, so it's supposed to get done within the next 5 years. And I think developments like ours and the ones that will come after it force the hand. And I think your park also forces the hand, because you want your park, your linear park future. I think approving those sorts of things forces the county's hand. Now, the county does have the ability to do an interim solution. And we asked our traffic engineer over the last couple of weeks to analyze what, if any, interim solution would work. And our traffic engineer said that the only solution that makes any sense is a 4-way stop as an interim solution. And she ran the warrants on that, and said that out of the 5 warrants, 2 were met. The more warrants you meet, the more likely that it needs to be done from an engineering standpoint.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes, ma'am.
Does everybody know what a warrant is?
I would like an explanation.
Okay, so engineering manuals have a stated set of conditions. And if these conditions there exist, or the more that a condition exists, or the worse a problem gets, that'll force, like, to put a traffic light in, you have a set of warrants for that. There's conditions that exist. If that exists, if they say this warrant's met, this warrant's met, this warrant, the more that are met, the more likely you need to put the traffic light in. So in our letter, we talk about the 5 warrants for stop signs, 4-way stop sign. Oh, 3-way. Yeah, I'm sorry, 3-way. I said 4-way.
Which letter is this?
It came in today.
Okay, the one that came in today, I know which one that is.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I just
It's
wanted
a
to.
memo from a traffic
I think
engineer.
it would be good to put that in the record.
Oh, it is.
I mean, no, I meant to read it so that
Oh,
someone watching the tape,
okay.
it's not that long.
Let me,
I have to find where it is.
yeah, I got it. Okay. So, of the 5 warrants, one is called the All-Way Stop Control Warrant A, crash experience. The second, Warrant B, is All-Way Stop Control. Warrant B is sight distance. Control Warrant C is transition to signal control or transition to yield control at a circular intersection. Warrant D is 8-hour volume, vehicles, pedestrians, bicycles. And Warrant E is other factors. Now,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
it's not my letter, it's this one right here, and maybe we can just give
Memo
you.
from Geo Pacific.
No,
No, not that one.
Fantastic, here.
Where is it? Then I was looking at the wrong thing.
It's right here on page 7 of 10. It looks like this.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
Yep, there it is.
Dated today.
If you look on page 7, you'll see it.
Okay, I know I've read it, I just couldn't find it.
And then the engineer says, you know, according to the manual, the decision to install all-way stop control on site roadways open to the public may be based on engineering judgment, and warrants are not a substitute for engineering judgment. The fact that a warrant for a particular traffic control is met is not conclusive justification to install or not install all-way control. So what that's basically saying is at the end of the day, the warrants are engineering suggestions if they're objective standard, but at the end of the day, if the engineer in their judgment says, boy, we really need this because this particular situation is unique and it's dangerous, they can issue that order to put in the four-way stop. Now, I won't go through all of the engineering analysis here, but of the two warrants that were met is warrant C, which is, let's see. I'll go ahead and read this. All-way stop control may be installed at locations where all-way stop control is an interim measure that can be installed to control traffic while arrangements are being made for the installation of a traffic control signal at the intersection. King City TSP includes a future project to reroute 137th to align with Collier Avenue and install a traffic signal. Given the future transition to signal control, warrant C is met. And then she goes on to say for warrant E, other factors may necessitate the installation of always stop control at an intersection, including the need to control left turn conflicts or to further accommodate current pedestrian bicycle volumes. Given the concern over left turn conflicts, warrant E is met. So of the 5 warrants, 3 are met for always stop control. And so she concludes, you know, it's not absolutely critical that you do that, but it is an option that could be exercised by the county relatively inexpensively and relatively painlessly. And there would be an improvement. Now, the downside to it is mobility, of course, because everyone that's trying to get through the area now has to stop, and you know how four-way intersections are, three-way intersections are. It takes time to go through that intersection. So that's, of course, the downside. But I wanted to point out that, you know, there's been a lot of talk about safety here, and some of the more bombastic comments say that we are defending the creation of a building an unsafe community, which is utter nonsense. But I am pointing out here that there is, if it's deemed by the engineers at the county that the left turn conflicts are a big enough problem, there is a solution that's relatively inexpensive and could occur, on their time schedule, which pretty much immediately. So I think that's all I wanted to say about that. I do want to emphasize that safety is not a green light, red light thing. It's not like everything's safe until one moment, and then you add one more grain of rice and everything's safe all of a sudden. Safety is a continuum. You know, you go from very safe, no problems, to gradually things get worse as traffic increases, and at some point there's engineering judgment that says, you know, this isn't really a good intersection anymore. Usually the trigger is many crashes, but there's others. And so when people say, well, this is unsafe, and I'm like, no, not really. It's true that the turn pockets are not ideal. It'd be nice if they were longer. Just because they're shorter doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be head-on collisions. I mean, if you're standing in a road and you see that the turn pocket is full, you either can be greedy and make everyone else behind you stop, or you say, well, I don't want to block everyone's traffic, and you just go through the intersection, find a way to turn around and come back, go the other way. That doesn't create necessarily a safety problem. All right, well, that's really all I want to do. I just wanted to take 5 minutes because I thought when I saw the hearing last time, I thought this was sort of the 800-pound gorilla issue. And the other thing I said, Cody put into the record a letter that he wrote that is aimed at forcing the decision makers in the county to reprioritize this project. And it has a list of all of the elected officials and everyone that he thought would be a good person to contact. And I think the more noise that King City makes, the more you shake things up with the county, faster you'll get your money to fix that intersection. I think you should be insistent with the county to start implementing what they said they would do and get these funds in to fix these intersections. And this one's the priority one. Oh, that's not in the record?
Not in the record.
No, it is. I think he put that in the record.
Oh, you sent it to me, it's in the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good letter.
Yeah, yeah,
Good letter.
it was a good letter.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much for allowing me that.
Well, I added a little time because I asked him to explain what warrants were. Okay, before I ask for motion, is there any other discussion?
Yeah, can someone summarize what we've done already to get Washington County on board with?
So,
Talking about the intersection?
Yeah, the intersection.
city, back in October, I want to say.
Okay.
When we were working really heavily on the West Side Trail, we identified, myself, manager, internally, that in order to facilitate the West Side Trail strategically, the annexation of the power line corridor should coincide with the annexation of the entirety of that portion of 137,
Okay.
all of 137. That's the power line. And then we could get the right of way, and we could make those stormwater improvements on the west side, and it just makes sense to have the both of them. And then we could also identify it as start working towards fixing it, which is, it's identified as a project. Improvements, full street improvements, the intersection, et cetera. So that got conversations going with the county. I had already acquired signatures from the BPA people. The federal government had signed off on the Power Association or administration. And when I went to the county, initially they replied with a memorandum of understanding, which basically put a moratorium on development on 137. So they said, well, we identify 137th and Beef Bend as a problem intersection, and if you want to annex this, then you can no longer do any development on that intersection, or on that street at all. And the city, our city attorney said, that that's unreasonable. You can't, the county cannot impose that onto the city. And so that went back and forth a little bit for a while, and then eventually kind of sort of just got shelved. And when we began to really get into the hearings with this development, and it appeared to the county that this development was going to be approved, which it hasn't, but it started getting it on their mind. And so we went back to our city attorney. We got some revisions in the MOU, revisions that from the city's perspective are important. So what we did to add to our agreement with the county is that instead of stopping all development on 137th, we proposed to the county that we create a action plan and a timeline and funding mechanisms to fix the intersection itself and the street. And so we presented that with the county. We said, hey, well, let's put a deadline on this. And since it's a MOU, not exactly a binding legal document, so at some point in time, the city will probably need to negotiate some sort of IGA, intergovernmental agreement with the county, to really identify the funding and the time to fix the intersection in a prompt manner. But when I got my edits from the city attorney, I sent them over to the county. That was just last week. I spoke to a senior transportation planner at county. And so it's circulating over in Washington County right now, and we're currently waiting to hear back what they present back to the city. But as the applicant mentioned, this is county is more or less like a reactive government. Yeah. They wait for a problem and then they solve it. They're not very proactive. They don't solve things before there's an issue. That's at least in my experience working with county engineers and county planners.
Tony Mills is trying to be preemptive about this.
Yes. He is by presenting some alternatives that the applicant.
Tony Miller.
Tony Mills is an associate planner over at Washington County.
Right.
But they tend not to do things without having something bigger in person.
This,
And the concern with the temporary access is that then the county will just kick the can down the road and continue.
this issue goes back to the 1999-2000 Long-Term Transportation Planning Committee that I served upon, and this issue was raised that as growth happened in South County, because the area west of 131st was just in the process of being built, that we were going to need to do improvements. Finally, we got the light at 131st. It took somebody getting almost killed at that intersection. And that they were going to have to rebuild the intersection at where 137th because they had built Collier and the county had built Peachtree, and of course that's not in, neither one of those is in the city of Tigard. They're still in the county today. So this issue has been on their radar since the recommendations out of that committee, and that's 25 years ago.
Okay, but we do have a memo of understanding. We do have,
But it's nothing has been signed or
right.
executed.
but it's an acknowledgement by the county that this is going in, and we're gonna have a park, and we're gonna have,
More traffic.
more traffic. I mean, 137th, I started thinking about how, intense it's going to be. But we do have that, and we have that acknowledgement. That's
All we
that's
can do.
key to me. Is it,
All we can do.
yeah, it's key, but they,
The hope is that, county and the city have negotiating this, they'll look it up on their priority list.
right,
And then maybe the city can, we'll look at funding mechanisms through the county outside of development, such as M-STEP funding. The county has transportation funds set aside for issues exactly like this.
so we just basically just have to sign on the dotted line, because we've got the plan, we've got,
And the issue is that, like all of what I just said,
Uh-huh.
137th and remain, they're not extra-jurisdictional.
Right, yeah.
Within the city.
right. And when we annex the, power line strip, we will be annexing the entire 137th at that time, right?
That is
Okay.
the intent.
And how about the land that's west of 137th? I think there's a house on it now. And what I saw was an alignment that kind of curved over to,
So it would just be the right of way.
okay,
There's no houses.
okay, no, okay. And, that was my big concern.
Do you have a comment?
We need to do minutes after we vote for this.
Oh. It wasn't on my list. I have my cheat sheet.
I have a couple things. Like to say as I look through this, it's a story with no heroes. This is, I recognize it's legislative, not a legislative hearing, it's quasi-judicial. I'm obligated to strictly answer the question, does this development satisfy codes requirements as they exist now? I will say there's things on this that the applicant has done very well. Required to do one neighborhood meeting, has done 3, well-publicized, responded to neighbors' concerns throughout. I really appreciate the reach out. I'm going to touch on just a couple of the issues that were raised by the submitting the later submitted quality. Specifically, the Clean Water Services South Bull Mountain Stormwater Plan. That was a plan that was supposed to have been completed long before this. It's not. it would be wonderful if we waited until it's done, but that's not a requirement. You know, the stuff you've got in the clean water services, my understanding, fits the code, it meets the code. It does what you're required to do. You know, this would have been good to have, like you talked about getting things on 137, dedicated infrastructure in ahead of time. You know, that's a planning, it's a thing. Your drainage facilities meet the 25-year floodplain. You know, it would be nice to have had a place to go when it overflows after that, but it does meet existing code. Part of this is the master plan, transportation plan, were all made with the assumption development will start on the west side where Newtown Center is, where Rogers, some move eastward. You know, that this would be the last piece done. Reality is, with this starting, it does change the nature of the neighborhood. There will be, you know, it's my prediction of the future, where I'm almost never right, is, you know, this is the first of a domino as effect. People will move out, like Phyllis, that you bought the house from her heirs who passed away. It's one of the houses in your development. You know, she would have never developed, but the heirs do. You know, we have 100-year-old residents on that street. She's awesome. My biggest concern, as we've identified here, is safety. And I understand almost everything's a continuing. Nothing's a safe, not safe type deal. We do have written testimony from Washington County Transportation Review dated April 3rd, letter from Susan Meredith dated April 16th, letter from Cody dated the 18th, letter from Carl Swanson, who's here, dated the 22nd, that all identify that intersection, as you have said, as a safety hazard. This is not something to be dismissive about when you refer to utter nonsense. The people that live there and visit there are familiar with that intersection, and the difference, the mistake that I see is that you guys did everything required of you for your transportation deal. You got, I think the city of King City blew it on this one. You know, you got a scope. I've done work in quality. You wrote out the scope and took it back and said, this is what we heard you, is this correct? You know, went to Washington County, didn't have, you did the scope as you were requested to do the scope. That's good. As I look through that transportation study, you know, I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't, a lot of it like that. But I do say that the record data, which is 5 years starting in 2023, that island was put in April 2024, and it changed that intersection. It changed doing that intersection dramatically. The traffic person stated, you know, when I had asked previously, will this include FedEx, Amazon, all that stuff? They said our main concerns are AM and PM. As I was coming here at 5:15, I watched the oversized large FedEx truck go by my house. You know, they do that all day long. Rush hour, not rush hour, doesn't matter. A school bus is 35 to 40 feet. School buses go in there, turn left. So you're correct in identifying this as an issue. I'm really heartened to hear that we're working on it. I understand that I cannot, it is not my job to require you to comply with Washington County conditions that they have not created. You know, you can't do that. I understand that. I appreciate your letter that you sent out to respondents talking about, we recognize it's an issue, let's work together, let's come up with stuff. Let's write to the governor, let's write to the representatives, let's advocate for this. I look forward to you being an advocate of the efforts of King City and Washington County to get this fixed. It's in your best interest, you know that. You don't want to sell houses to people in an unsafe area. And
I'm not much for props, but if anyone wants a piece of the car I picked up on the way here, just went off in the grass. Last one that plowed through, or maybe the
reflector on the pavement that they skidded over as they were bouncing, you know, the safety thing's been in there. For 1 year, it's been plowed through twice. You know, I'm also in the TIS, it says declaration for the left turn movements on either Peachtree or 137 is likely to primarily occur in the through travel lanes. Now, deceleration for left turn movements is likely to occur in the travel lanes. However, this is likely how drivers would behave regardless of queuing in the two-lane left turn lane because of existing roadway geometry. People go fast on that road. It's 35 mile an hour. Eastbound has just dropped to 35, and so, you know, normally people are going 5 miles over the limit. Here we don't have the full deceleration to 35. They go faster, and with the new traffic coming in, you wait there. I counted 17 cars, both directions, before I was queued up second when I came out here to this meeting. Between the car in front of me and myself, there were 17 cars. You know, you got to find your brake. You got to move fast. It's going to be issues. I would, as a request, not a condition, but hopefully you would be able to, you know, the people that wrote these letters, they lived here, they visit here, they know what this is like. If it is possible, I would request that you do one more revision to the TIS to include the crash data currently. So that signpost has been taken out twice at high speed. It was put up the third one 2 days ago. And also, and this is a question, I don't know, I notice all your data goes to 2027, your full build out. Is that what we're allowed to ask exactly?
You can ask and they can say when they're going to start actual work.
right. But we're not allowed. You know, are we able to ask a applicant to include in a traffic statement further out than when they're done developing?
Right, you're referring to including future developments.
Yeah, you know, town center is going to 2030. When
The car gets to town center, it's parked in the east.
past 137, there's nowhere to go in between.
I think when you have projections that are definitive, that would be reasonable.
I would love to see one more amended TIS that includes projections up to the build out of town center.
That's 1,183 units.
And that's intended to be completely built out by 2030. And then, can't remember the one that's just east of Elger.
233 additional units, but I'm not sure when they're building that.
They said in the hearing they were starting in the spring of 27 on that development. So it will probably be half built out by,
Yeah, the last year is a significantly different intersection than it was the 24 years previously that I lived there. I really liked the letter you wrote that says, we recognize this, we want to work on it. I like that. You know, I think, and this is not your responsibility to do, but I like the fact that we're trying to move up the ultimate solution is fix the intersection.
Before 2030. Huh? Before 2030.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's not that long. 5 years was.
You know, I had options for an interim solution. I would hope you would have supported.
My first one was three-way stop. Cool. You know, flashing yellow light, warning signs, caution, offset intersection ahead, reduce the speed, but a three-way stop should take care of the issue. Very simple. I would love your support for a three-way, for an interim solution, however that ends up. It's in my interest as someone who drives there. It's in your interest as someone who wants future clients to get to them,
So to speak.
Want to throw any comments in? That's my comment
Okay.
to my commissioners.
Did you have any further comments? Commissioner Petrie?
There's a ton of stuff here, and the ultimate goal in King City is adding more housing. That's our long-term goal here, and this is a project that's going to do that, and we have, of course, as we know, mandates from the state to do this sort of thing. I think the recommendations of staff and all of the conditions that are on this application are going to cover a whole bunch of stuff that's going to have to happen before any ground is turned, any shovel. There's a lot of stuff that's going to have to be done. And that includes working with Washington County, that includes working with Clean Water Services. All of these are conditions on this recommendation. So I think that going forward, a lot of this stuff is going to work itself out because it has to work itself out. And we may have to.
It's going to work.
Well, but we are in a position of observing and watching and prodding to make sure some of this stuff goes forward. And if it means getting in touch with our local Congress people, with our local state reps, as your letter suggested, we can do that. And we've had good results working with our local people on things like this. So I think this is doable because I'm an optimistic person. I think it's all doable.
And it's going to take time. This is going to be a time thing. But that doesn't mean we don't go forward, because we pretty much are mandated to go forward. So that's my feeling.
Okay, I have a couple of comments. I appreciate everything that Commissioner Blair said. It was some of the things that I was going to talk about, being proactive in terms of trying to find, push. I mean, the reality is, if to rebuild that intersection, they need to start within the next 6 months if they want to get it done by 2030. It just takes that long to go through the planning and the engineering and all of the stuff. So I would hope that the developer would continue to be an advocate with the city to get Washington County off the dime, so to speak. I would make one more plea. I know you're not set up for this, that if not in this development, your next development, you plan to have a couple of flats in so that disabled people will be able to have a ground floor unit. It's not that difficult to set it up. I've worked with a lot of developers in this context where they put a few of those units in. And there's actually some grants that are available to help offset some of the additional cost. So please think about that. And as I said, I would have said much of what Commissioner Blair said. I appreciate everything you've done. You did a good job on your application. I just wish we could fix 137th in the next year or so when you're getting ready to build. Because you're going to have construction vehicles going in and out of there, and they're big, huge monsters. And I don't want what happened on 131st to happen at 137th. It took someone almost getting killed to get that traffic light in. So I was chairing the CPO at that point in time. So this is a big deal, and I'm very concerned. I see the cut-through traffic on my street in King City. The cut-through traffic, people trying to avoid all the lights on 99, has tripled over the last 3 years. And I now have people, I'm on Royalty, which basically parallels 99. And I do not try to get on to Beef Bend from 116th right here much of the time because it's a freeway going back and forth. It's dangerous to make a left turn. So that gives me that is some support for why I'm so concerned, particularly because of that island in the middle. I don't want to see somebody have a major head-on collision be the impetus for the county to finally move off Ground Zero. And it could be one of your residents. So with that, we have to follow the rules.
Okay.
So I'm requesting a motion to approve. Oh,
I want to make sure that my comment, since it is out of order, about this, the pedestrian
Oh.
connection didn't get,
yeah, it didn't get
lost.
mentioned.
Yeah.
Did you get that written down, sir?
Can you re-comment it? Will you restate it?
Okay. On the northwest corner, we have these 4 lots, and we have their driveways, and we have more pavement, which may or may not be part of the driveways because there's easement access and all that stuff. So all I'm asking for is a 10-foot easement on that property so that there can be a pedestrian connection right here.
When future development happens?
Yes. We have quite a few of them in King City as it is, in the new development, and they're really nice. They're really nice, and we're hoping that people won't be driving all the time and be walking more and biking more. Do I see it?
I got it.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. If there's not any further discussion, I would request a motion.
Will we be adding conditions to it regarding the?
Yes. It'll be the conditions that were mentioned in the report, plus the correcting the property description and,
Okay, that was.
no, that was the annexation. I'm sorry. Were there any additional items? I don't think there were.
It's basically the staff report with all the
Yeah,
conditions.
yeah. So, is somebody prepared to make a motion?
I'll second it.
I could do it, Gretchen.
Okay.
So I move that the commission recommend approval of the proposed subdivision and development review application with all of the conditions that we have noted and all the conditions that staff has included in their report.
Okay, would you also, are you?
Question. This is not a recommendation, this is an approval.
No,
correct?
this is
No,
a
it is.
recommendation because it's connected to an annexation.
I want to make sure. There will be another set of hearings.
Yes,
We're recommending approval to council for doing,
we're recommending council approve.
Did you want to recommend the pedestrian connection that Carol's talking about?
I think
Sure.
yes,
Yes.
Recommend that.
And that condition,
condition, but I'd make a right? Yeah.
Are you done, Commissioner Petrie, with your motion?
as long as I've included everything I think we did, right?
Second, we have a second.
Can someone clarify, Max, can you clarify the group of conditions that we just talked about that,
So the conditions development are only included in the staff report.
Because as I'm understanding it right now, the planning commission is not conditioning anything extra.
Other than this
The pedestrian connection.
pedestrian connection, that easement.
On the northwest corner, yeah, we can do it. It'll be like a side private drive, right?
Yeah.
On the private easement.
Because someday that property to the west is going to develop.
So with a short memory, and I want to make sure we're voting on the right thing, can you read back motion?
That's why I wanted to.
Crafting the motion.
You are motioning to recommend approval with conditions,
Right,
with all the conditions that are listed in the staff report,
right.
and an additional condition to
Add an easement.
Add an
add
easement.
a
For
pedestrian
an easement.
easement on the northwest corner of the property to accommodate future development.
Right.
Okay, but what about the potential three-way stop at 137th and Beef Bend? Is that something that can be addressed at this one?
I don't really.
We don't have jurisdiction, so we can't. That's
It was adjacent to the development, and
outside of our control, totally. Okay,
part of the motion that I said.
yeah. The motion is to recommend approval of the application with all the conditions included in the staff report, plus a 10-foot easement at the northwest corner of the development for pedestrians.
I think it would have to be like a
Half the improvement.
and the future development.
No, this,
We can do. Oh, okay, that's what you got.
yeah. It's for a path, for trail down the road to the property line.
Second.
I think everybody's clear on the motion? All right. Would you call the roll, please?
Did we get a second?
Hmm?
Did we get a second?
Yes. Down at the other end. She finally.
Commissioner Gothier?
Approved.
Recommend approval. Commissioner Blair,
Approved.
Commissioner Bellows,
Approved.
Commissioner Petrie?
Approved.
Commissioner Boehner?
Because of the way the state law is requiring us to move, I approve.
Unanimous, recommend approval.
Thank you very much for your good presentation. And the one other comment that I'll make for future developments, make sure your transportation consultant looks at what the current state of the road is and looks at the looks at the traffic changes, because as Commissioner Blair said, putting that island in incredibly changed. I feel unsafe. I've tried to make a left turn into your street, and it's really difficult. And he said it's been taken out twice.
The pole, the signal pole in the middle of it that's flashing and plowed through high speed. We just got the third one up.
So,
Chair.
we're approved. Okay. Yes, we need to approve. What minutes? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh, and then just for the record, the city is planning, almost 100% certain, that the
Next hearing for this, that will be going to the city council, will be taking place on May 21st at 6 o'clock.
Sorry, what day?
May 21st.
Could you recommend to the counselors?
Thank you. The minutes at the bottom.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I get this cheat sheet that I'm following. Cheat sheet. Okay, are there any corrections to the minutes? One? Thank you. Okay, if there are no corrections, I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Standard.
April 9th.
Is there a second? All those in favor, can we just do hand raise for this?
Aye.
Everybody's approved the minutes.
Okay.
Approval.
All right.
Okay,
Make the motion.
I did.
seconded.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
okay.
13.
We have another item on our agenda, and, this is, Commissioner Mitchell is the one who came up to discuss this issue down, the thing down.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And since he's not here tonight, he will be back the end of the month. Would you be willing to reset this item to when he can be here to be part of the discussion?
I would want him to.
Yeah, I would too. Mitchell.
There will be a planning commission in May, May 28th.
I will,
21st or 28th?
no, that's the city council, the 21st.
Oh.
Which means I will be in San Diego at a conference, so
Oh.
you will get to chair that meeting.
Woohoo.
And then
But we need to, do we have to have a motion to, move that item to our next planning commission meeting?
I move it to the next planning commission meeting if Commissioner
Mitchell. He'll be
Mitchell
back.
is there.
Yeah.
Okay.
that, which item was that? That was the
Yeah,
discussion,
the discussion
WS recap.
Yeah.
and looking at maybe figuring out how to get a grant idea together that can go to council to be.
Right.
Mm, okay.
And she wants to discuss the letter that I drafted.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. There's one more, the letter that, I think it would be good to read it into the record.
No, here.
This is very time sensitive.
Oh.
Oh, I couldn't open it.
To vote it down and then for state reasons? Okay.
Abstain, so state your reason.
Okay, so this letter is a letter of support that staff is requesting the chair and whoever else agrees with the letter on the planning commission to sign. I will be submitting an application to Metro for a nature and neighborhoods grant to address the erosion issue over at Deer Creek and potentially do some retrofit work on the trail itself. I'm currently waiting on my city engineer to give me a scope and cost estimate so that I can put it to the grant, but this grant is due on the end of the day on Monday. So that is why I'm bringing it to you today. Obviously, you kind of need letters of support and stuff like that.
Is this the one where you asked us for letters of support?
This is the one that I've been working on for a while, yeah. And, I have received a letter of support as a citizen from Commissioner Blair. But this is a support that I'm asking for from the,
This would be a letter I signed
from the body.
representing them.
So, or can we individually?
Do we just get our pens out and sign this?
I'll circulate one around for you
Okay.
to sign. I just put, the only person's name I put was, I didn't even put,
Yeah,
so I can read it for you if you want.
I think it'd be good to read it in the record.
And again, and this is open for discussion, so if there's any, like me to redline, any contention with the letter, anything like that, feel free, I can edit it and, provide the chair with an edited version tomorrow to sign. So if you have any issue with any particular piece, feel free to speak up or feel as if I'm.
And I did review it, and I thought it was good,
So, letter of support for King City's Metro Nature and Neighborhoods Grant application. To whom it may concern, on behalf of the King City Planning Commission, we are ready to express our strong and enthusiastic support for the City of King City's application for the Metro Nature and Neighborhoods Grant. The proposed project represents a critical step toward addressing long-standing erosion issues at Deer Creek, an important natural corridor in our community. In addition to mitigating erosion, the project will restore portions of the Tualatin River and coastal wetlands and create a much-needed nature trail that provides accessible recreation and educational opportunities for King City residents. The project is aligned with King City's broader goals to promote environmental stewardship, improve water quality, and provide equitable access to nature. It also supports the Planning Commission's vision for sustainable land use and development and enhances livability while protecting vital natural resources. We commend the city for proactively pursuing this opportunity and for its commitment to collaboration, environmental restoration, and enhancement.
Planning Commission views this initiative as a high priority and urges Metro to give the application your full consideration. Thank you for your continued investment in regional green spaces and for the opportunity to support this important work. Anyone have any feedback they would like to provide?
It's a good letter.
Good program.
No, it is.
So,
Now then, can
spoke
you,
with the staff over at Metro, and she said it's good for.
I'm going to abstain on my vote because I have already written a letter. I had Matt send me his application when he had a day or so ago, and just letting,
Even though I'm abstaining, I'm letting my fellow commissioners know I support getting this grant
for this purpose.
will this letter be, given to council so that, because they're gonna have to know about this grant?
The previous council knew about it. I don't think they ever passed a resolution about it. But I submitted the pre-application for this, which is where most of those answers that I sent to Commissioner Blair back in, I think.
Does council have to approve filing this application for a grant?
They verbally approved it.
Okay.
I don't know when, but I can't.
Okay, I just want to make sure this isn't gonna get caught. Okay. I would request a motion to approve, signing this letter on behalf of the Planning Commission.
I move to approve, sign, and send this letter.
Okay. Any further discussion? Can be this hand vote? All in favor?
I'm in favor, I think against.
Mention
Four.
401.
Yeah.
Could you send a copy of this to Commissioner Mitchell specifically and let him know? I mean,
Yeah, I did.
He emailed it to all.
okay, I just want to make sure, because I want him to know about it when he gets back,
Yeah.
preferably before I have our discussion at our last meeting.
Also, on a side note, I urge everyone in the commission, if at all possible, to talk to your friends and family. They do support this project to submit their own individual letters of support because.
For example, the Oregon State Marine Board grant that we were awarded,
I received letters of helps evaluating these.
How soon should they get their letters in? No,
I need to have it by Monday.
oh,
I mean, the letters of support from individuals you need by Monday morning?
yes,
Not to you, it's going to Metro, right?
it needs to be in the application.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
So we don't send them to Metro, we send them, bring them in, walk them in.
Email them to me. Give me an email.
all right.
I got it,
Well, maybe we can get a couple people that we know to send a letter.
yeah.
It could
I'm
be
sure you don't know anybody in your neighborhood that would support that.
Like a 2-sentence.
I think this is good.
I will talk to my neighbors.
Okay, and we do have some data from some of our public outreach with the West Side Trail that also supports that people were looking for like forest and nature walks and stuff, so because we kind of included that in our outreach efforts, so I'm including that stuff as well.
Okay.
Okay.
As I drove around this week, I looked and I thought of how dense everything is going to be. And the only open spaces are going to be the stormwater swales. And
Oh, Commissioner, I also want to mention one last thing, is that it's
Ronnie's birthday!
Woo!
happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ronnie. Happy birthday to you.
With that in mind, I would like to hopefully wrap this up if it's the will of the commission, so that Ronnie can go.
I have just a quick, did that email get to people?
Commissioner?
Yeah.
Please be aware,
Yeah?
there you go. Luckily, you only sent it to Max and I.
Okay,
You did not send it to the whole council,
okay,
or commission.
okay. I wasn't sure, you said mail your comments to
I received it, but, yeah, I didn't circulate. That's Ronnie. He said that everything
Okay. One of the things I wanted to bring up is that my experience is that our code has some holes in it, and that, one of our workshops that we so lovingly attend, we might just sit down and brainstorm, we wish we had this in there. You know, whether it's flats or pedestrian connections or,
Whatever.
yeah.
I have a question, and have been appointed to the Charter Review Committee. We have our first meeting next week, which will just be kind of organizational, but if any of you have any thoughts of things you think might be appropriate to include in the charter review, and talk to your neighbors, because we're going to be working on it, and it'll take at least a year, but the sooner we get suggestions, better, because then everybody can, you know, digest these ideas and see how they could be.
Charter review.
Charter review.
Explain.
The city every city has a charter,
Uh-huh.
and this charter is basically the same charter they've had.
Right,
Or,
okay.
there have been some corrections,
Mhm.
but
Last thing, I promise, is that
No, it's not, because I get to finish.
oh,
and this is actually, I think,
Apt, and this is completely a decision that the commission can make on its own. But, former Commissioner Nicolai was the one who first came forward and, asked the commission to move their meetings to 6:30 or 6 o'clock PM.
Back to 9
And
a.m.?
since he has resigned,
yeah.
I wanted to ask the
Yeah.
commission if they were interested in potentially reconsidering and going back
to 9:30.
I would.
Yes.
but that's something you can discuss
Discuss with yourselves, you have to make a motion.
In the morning?
Yeah.
where,
Yeah, but-
how it was for like.
But that's hard for people who have a job.
Well, Zoom makes it pretty easy, accessible.
Unless you're a surveyor,
I mean,
Out in the
you can go on your
field.
phone through.
out of town, and if I'm out, my whole crew gets shut down.
I'd like public opinion.
For what?
You used to come to the early meetings, right? Sure.
I think that there's no.
Yeah.
Nothing more.
Yeah.
But I would suggest public hearing.
It could even be a configuration where, since the planning commission has the potential to meet twice a month,
Second Tuesday of the month,
if
Yeah.
you meet on that day, it could be 9 o'clock, and if it's the fourth
I would
Tuesday of a month, it could be at 6 o'clock.
So 90% of the meetings with the planning commission are public hearing. Okay.
Or but having a lot of workshops.
Your workshops can be over the application.
Okay, well,
We can think about it.
yeah,
I need consistency though, because I do work and I do need to tell my work, you know, what the actual
Sure.
plan is gonna be. But truthfully, from the audience members that I've seen here, really the 9 a.m. or the 6 p.m. hasn't made a difference with who's showed up.
No, you're right, and
Yeah.
when it was 9:30 forever.
We had people here.
well, that was set up because so many people, this was a senior community, and a lot of people don't drive at night. And that was and that's why the city council meetings were also in the daytime, because of the old configuration of the city.
I'm old.
Well,
No,
it's-
no.
But again, a morning is for the folks, all these professional folks that are coming to our meeting. Okay, well, then they have to be at a meeting at 6 o'clock, that's overtime for them. I mean, and not that it matters to us, but to make things fair for everyone attending, I don't see any reason, like you're saying, the workshops couldn't be at 9:30.
No, I would have no problem having the workshops in the morning.
And Max really likes going home, and so does Ronnie. They get
No.
really tired.
I bet you there's a special dinner at home for you.
Probably not.
And
Okay.
If you think about it, we're
Yeah.
gonna have our next meeting on May 28th. It will be about a minor code amendment that the specific line of folks that in the town center.
They're requesting a very small change into the code, and it has to go through the whole PAPA and
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, one of our, just, they are making their homes front onto Beef Bend, whereas this development is backing onto Beef Bend. And I just thought I would mention that.
For that type of development, the majority of them have the backyards facing the street, the busy
Yes,
road.
right, yeah.
There-
And we decided,
If they fronted on Beef Bend,
yeah,
they would be fronting on the base of the.
right, and I mentioned that to them. We were talking about the cottage communities. And, I know Mike had this thing about fronting onto Beef Bend. So anyway, that's something that, with disparity that I was,
So they're quite different though. That this one has a wall.
Mhm.
There's not a wall.
oh,
it's- There is a short, but if you look at the elevation
uh-huh.
from the street level walking down to the lots below, it's not a big giant leap.
Fairly flat.
It's fairly flat.
Oh, is it there?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It starts to get, when we did the project that's east of Elsner, as you go up, you start having more and more differential.
Okay.
But the south end is still flat. They may have to build a retaining wall at the top end of, the east end of that property.
Okay.
Okay, there's nothing further. I
Yep.
would entertain a motion to,
Nope,
oh,
nope.
sorry.
I got
I don't
one-
want to
I
cut
got
you
one-
off.
One further thing.
Okay.
Commissioner Bowles, you talked about, and this is, I'd like to put something on the agenda for next meeting.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm supporting let's talk about the codes thing.
Uh-huh.
We have
Discussions,
that repeat themselves over and over. Commissioner Gauthier, you have several times mentioned that the developments we're seeing have no housing that you could afford. These are at the neighborhood meeting, I asked the price, depends on market, blah, blah, blah.
basically $500,000.
Okay, that's what all of these that we just approved, are. The deal is, we can have this conversation over and over, that we don't have anything to require.
Right.
It comes back to the master plan, the code, the TSP, don't require it. We can never require housing that you or I could afford to.
Yeah.
Commissioner Diener, you've advocated for ADA accessibility. You're gonna keep doing that, and
Mm-hmm.
this is the first of a domino. You're gonna keep doing that.
He heard me.
He may have heard you, but when it comes time to develop the next one, if it makes more money to do $500,000 straight things, you have nothing, you have no leverage.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I'm just working my way down.
Yeah.
No, but I've been talking about affordable housing, and I've asked several of our people that have come through about, is there going to be any affordable housing or anything, something less than market rate? We don't require it, but is that a question? That's not a charter question, right?
No.
It's a code question.
That's a
No,
code
and,
question and a master plan.
and, the thing that I forgot to mention when we did the town center is we could have required, if we had it in the code, that some of the apartments, they're all going to be accessible because there'll be elevators, the ones that are in the retail, but that we put in our code specifically to require some accessible units. Yeah. Is that?
And I hadn't gotten to you, Commissioner.
Oh.
Right, I mean, I don't want to leave anybody.
No.
I don't want to leave anybody out. You've asked for pocket parks. I asked these guys for pocket
Yeah,
parks,
yeah, I asked too.
and the response was, master plan doesn't require us to do a pocket park.
Right.
It's someone else is gonna have to do that. If you look on the master plan, only pocket park in that area on land that Micah Day is building and has built $1 million significantly plus houses. That land will never be developed in any of our lifetime. That land is already redeveloped. And it has unique features on it, and you will never get a pocket park in that area following the master plan.
Uh-huh.
In our lifetimes.
Right, yeah, okay.
These houses aren't gonna sell for 80 years.
Yeah.
Brand new, they're spectacular.
Yeah, I was looking at that, I was like, well, then
I
where do we put the pocket parks?
Pardon?
Where are those houses?
Oh, so you're driving down Deep Bend,
Yeah.
and you're headed
Right.
west, and you've got a few more ranch-style houses,
Yeah.
which is,
Yeah,
you know,
standard ranch daylight basis,
right,
yeah.
right. And then you've got a wall. Okay, then you got a wall, and that's sound wall for these fancy homes. If you take a left and go down Myrtle,
Oh, down Myrtle, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't been down there in a while.
which technically is part of Rivermead.
Right. Oh, I didn't.
But go down Myrtle, and you'll see houses that are not gonna be redeveloped.
Oh,
And that
all those
property
lovely
will
little
never be redeveloped.
above ground farms are gone.
Yes.
Oh, I used to
Yeah.
go down there all the time.
I know.
Yeah.
That pocket park. So, we need changes to the code, we need to amend the master plan, it's kind of overdue.
Yeah.
Already.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So anyhow, I would like that for a discussion
How
at the
about,
next meeting.
okay, why don't we set a meeting in June and a workshop, and that's what we'll talk about,
Okay,
where we could make these changes. Would that work for you, Max? And you could figure out where in the code some of these would go?
Yeah, what the process is gonna be.
Right.
Uh-huh.
My only concern is that including things like affordable housing, pocket park, amending the master plan, that's beyond the scope of my job
Yeah,
and would involve grants, like TGM grants and
It,
stuff.
it would be recommendations from the planning commission.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
but in terms of code things, if you could kind of
And there's definitely probably some stuff I could do that I couldn't.
think about these, where these
Plug in.
possibly could go.
Uh-huh.
I sort of sat in on the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee for River Terrace 2.0. And one of the topics of conversation was, are there incentives built into the and their code for affordable housing? Our incentive is the fact that SDCs are cheaper on the smaller that the home is, but that just really kind of encourages like cottage homes and stuff. But we don't have the same kind of baked-in incentive that Tigard is working on.
Is this something that we could maybe look at doing?
And it would be.
I would not even know where to start.
Yeah, and it would involve city council. I know that Chicago, I went to a conference, and, they require a certain number of, affordable units, meaning they're, the same as market rate, but, you know, they have that mortgage
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah,
I think my neighborhood, actually in Bradley Woods, had at least one. And
had to.
two, okay. And so it's sometimes baked into the code. I talked with, our town center people, and she said that Beaverton, is working some sort of deal, and to contact the planning department in Beaverton, find out what they're doing.
I think this is a subject of a joint workshop with the council. And I'm sorry, every other city has joint workshops between the planning commission and city council. And we had one while I was on the council. There's no reason we can't just set it up.
And we did it all through the concept plan.
Yes,
Concept planning, we had
Yes.
several joint.
yeah,
Joint.
we did it before you were on the council. Yeah.
Well, I was on when I first on planning
Yeah.
commission, we
Yeah.
had several meetings
So-
with council.
We need to set one up. We have to have it happen. It will help their work too, because they're gonna have comments on code changes that they think need to happen.
Okay, can we talk about like rental properties for a second? Talking, like you mentioned, that I could never afford to buy a house. Well, I can't even afford to rent in these neighborhoods as is. I mean, they're charging.
They can enforce that, because that's.
They can't create any sort of law on that, I'm pretty sure.
No.
Because a business could buy a bunch of homes and then rent them out.
Yeah,
And we'd really like to avoid like
Regulated.
Right, yeah.
that's a problem we're having is these hedge funds are buying houses and then renting them out.
I know, almost all of the houses on my street are now being turned into rentals. So, like, yeah, there's no home ownership anmore.
State law.
That's an HOA thing.
well, there's going to be state laws about.
No,
it,
in,
too.
if you live in the old KCCA, you cannot rent your unit.
Like that.
And also, the state is currently, state Senate is looking at a bill that will eliminate the planning commission from doing development plan review for subdivision.
Yeah. What? Yes. What?
It'll force staff to
Do all the work.
review and approve subdivision.
And it's 45 days.
Yeah.
You think it's bad now?
The trend, isn't it?
I already went to state for that. Well, they don't want any delay in housing, but the problem is that has nothing to build affordable housing. It's just building housing. And the biggest cost for the builder is buying the land. And if you build a bigger house on that piece of land, you're gonna make a bigger profit. Versus you build a 1,200 square foot house. It's hard for them to have any profit at all because of all of the costs, and a lot of the SDCs are related onto the land, not building. So, I mean, I understand their point of view, but.
All right, Chair.
Yeah.
For the sake of Ronnie, go home.
Yes, all right. I already asked, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Where,
Second.
Second it.
fellows?
Raise your hand, please. Thank you. No,
Okay.
if you could